Good morning and thank you for joining us. Good morning, do you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we do hear you perfectly. So I was wondering, I was just reading to our viewers what are the Fed's Williams thoughts on monetary policy, on future monetary policy, and specifically paring back monetary policy aid. Do you agree or you disagree?
So, can you repeat the question, because I really couldn't hear the question properly?
So I was saying that the Federal Reserve Bank of New York leader John Williams said he isn't ready for the U.S. Central Bank to dial back the support it is giving the economy amid uncertainty about the recovery from the pandemic. Then on the other side, we had Jay Powell, who was extremely positive when it comes to the economic outlook. So I was wondering, where are you positioned? Somewhere in the middle, or you have a completely different opinion?
Okay, I can hear you better, but not perfectly. But I understand the question. So, I think there are a variety of positions by the Fed at this stage. We saw, of course, Jay Powell last week. There was Williams that you quoted, Kaplan, Bullard, all came out with a variety of views that suggested the spectrum of views within the FOMC or what the Fed would do next. What we know is that first, the SEP suggested that the Fed might be hiking rates in 2023 instead of 2024, and that eventually tapering of asset purchases is about to start. The question is exactly when. Now, Chair Powell will testify today in Congress, first of all, about the credit easing facilities that have been approved during the pandemic, but of course also on the stance on monetary policy. And I think he will stick to the message that he gave last week at the end of the FOMC meeting, so it's going to be relatively cautious. There are those who suggest that the Fed might be hiking sooner than 2023 or beginning tapering asset purchases sooner rather than later. You asked for my opinion. I think that if I have to put myself in the shoes of an FOMC member, I would side more with what Jay Powell has been saying recently, in the sense that we also believe that inflation is a transitory phenomenon at this stage. You're not going to have reliable inflation readings for a number of months, at least until the beginning of next year, because there are numbers of base effects still playing out, and so we need to see these kind of adjustments working out the system. And I still need to see convincing and persistent increases in inflation that justify the Fed rushing to increase rates and tapering QE. Our position is that tapering will most likely start between December and January 2022, and therefore, in order to avoid a taper tantrum, the Fed will start making some first informal discussion and then some formal announcement between July and September. So the sequencing is reassuring the market in June. Effectively, this is what happened. We saw the 10-year yield at 1.5 today, so still very low. Then some initial noises on potential tapering in July. Then towards September, October, first proper announcement of tapering, considering that whatever you say then would be interpreted by the market. So you don't want the market to do effectively the tightening that the Fed wants to do a few months later. That's why the Fed needs to be extremely careful in making its announcements and communication.
Yeah, that's for sure. I just wanted to show very quickly to our viewers. This is the 10-year Treasury at 1.5. Then we have on the other side we have a way stronger dollar index at a 92 mark, 92.09 net today. It's up about 0.3%. So this is the current situation when it comes to Treasury yields and of course dollar index. I was wondering, considering this accommodative monetary policy, and you were just suggesting that this ultra accommodative monetary policy cycle is not about to come to an end, or at least in the near future. What are the market's perspectives, in your opinion?
Okay, yeah, so we see a number of market moves currently going on. There's a bit of volatility at the longer end of the yield curve because there's also changing in break-even inflation rates, even not just the inflation prints, but also the discussion around it. So the so-called inflation risk premium that is included in long-term yields. So that determines volatility at the longer end. But I still expect the 10-year yield to remain below 2% between now and year end. Other market moves that you suggested are in equities and in FX. Regarding FX, the dollar has been strengthening, but that comes on the backdrop of quite a serious weakening that we have observed in the last year or so, I would say. We saw that the euro, for example, was at 121, 122 until recently, and just in the last few sessions is gone down to 118, 119, where this is now, say, below 120. So this is probably also a movement that is going to reinforce itself in coming weeks. Also versus the yen, we saw the dollar yen at 110. So this is clearly a signal that there's further divergence in the policy path between the Fed and the BOJ, and we expect further dollar strength or Japanese yen weakness. The two things, of course, go hand in hand, but in general, the dollar is supposed to strengthen versus G10 currencies and also some of the currencies. Regarding equities, clearly a stronger dollar might put a bit of a cap on potential gains on the S&P 500 and Dow Jones, but at the same time you have to consider that there's a significant economic activity pickup. 7% growth expected in 2021 is a very strong growth rate, and so earnings of companies are also supposed to rebound quite nicely in coming months. So these are two countervailing factors, but overall we think equities will remain very well supported in coming months.
All right, great. And of course, final take on Bank of England. The meeting is tomorrow. So we were discussing also with our previous guests that when it comes to inflation and inflation talks in the United States, the same topic cannot be compared with the current situation within the Eurozone and the United Kingdom. So what are your expectations from Andrew Bailey and of course his team?
To be honest, I don't think the Bank of England would do much. There was a dissenter, of course, at the last meeting, Henry Albain, who wanted the 150 billion package to be curtailed to 100 billions of extra asset purchases, but this doesn't seem to be yet the position of the medium MPC voter, let alone of a majority, 5-4 or more, for doing that. Probably the asset purchase program that has been put in place at the end of last week will run its course to the end of this year as is supposed, but just dividing the number of months by, so to speak, the amount that needs to be purchased is absolutely normal and expected. There will be a bit of a slowdown in the pace of purchases in coming months. That shouldn't be interpreted necessarily as a tightening of the monetary stance. Let's not forget that the UK has been hit not just by the pandemic, and when we know that the UK is already ahead of everybody else regarding the Delta variant, in what is good or bad for the country, but we know it's ahead. In fact, some quarantine has been reinstated by a number of European countries for UK travelers. But there's also the other elephant in the room that is never discussed, and that's Brexit, of course, which instead is having its own implications for trading, for export, for import, for services. There are tensions in Northern Ireland. There are constant tensions in Parliament regarding on how to potentially implement the withdrawal agreement. So it's being put, somehow on one side, this big issue of Brexit, but it will start biting. So the Bank of England has not just the pandemic to deal with, but it's another serious structural issues to deal with. And that's
right.
Brexit. That's why I believe they will remain extremely cautious in exiting the extraordinary accommodations in coming months.
Right. Once again, the pandemic is a major factor. Thank you very much, Brunello Rosa, CEO, Rosa Rubini Associates. Thank you for joining us, and of course, have a great day ahead.
Thank you very much. We'll be in touch soon.